ago, he said no trading Tom Brady, and Kraft is choosing Brady over Belichick. And I do believe this is why Belichick largely gave Garoppolo and Jacoby Brissett his backup quarterbacks away.
This is The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
2 through 5 on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities. Follow us on Facebook. I'm not saying that Colin Cowherd is wrong when he talks about head games that Bill Belichick might be playing, but I'm sorry, especially if he's going to play for as many as 6 years before this season. I mean, yeah, what do we always hear? Tom Brady's talking about playing until he's 45. No. If it is between the quarterback and the coach, you take the quarterback. There's no question about that. And as great as Jimmy Garoppolo has done at San Francisco, I mean, he's never lost a game as a starter, for crying out loud. He was 3-0 with the Patriots last year. As great as come on. Are you really going to do a Mike Tomlin to Tom Brady? And grease his skids for a Jimmy Garoppolo? What was my sports maxim number 18? You take care of your legends. Steelers didn't do that with Harrison. I'm sorry. Well, they can argue, they paid him $2.2 million, and point taken. But, you know, trying to grease his skids when he went to Cincinnati 4 years ago and now to the Patriots. Rob Kraft knows, you know what, Bill, surly coach, you're in your mid-60s. I think there might be more tread left on Brady's tires than yours. If it wouldn't surprise me if Belichick did that, okay, because he can be that petty. And I realize that then you're like, okay, we've got two legends here. Who do we take care of? But if that is the case, how petty is Bill Belichick? I guess he's petty with 5 rings, huh? You know, you can get away with that. But then again, so is Brady. And you know what? The chances of 6 and 7 are much better with Brady, even in his 40s, trying to be the modern day George Blanda, only new and improved, than you are having old surly coach on the sidelines. You can find, I mean, there are a lot of coaches that can win with Tom Brady, and Rob Gronkowski. Trust me on that. There's a lot of coaches that can do that. Bill Belichick, when he had Vinny Testaverde, I mean, I've seen him go 5-11. So, we'll just put it that way, okay? All right, Tri-City Sports Now. We talked a little bit. Charles Kelly, former defensive coordinator, Florida State. He will be, and this is another thing. I mean, both the former coordinators are going to East Tennessee. Sanders is going to ETSU, and being the defensive coordinator, you got Charles Kelly. Now is going to be the defensive coordinator of the Vols. This was not the greatest Florida State team in the world last year, folks. So you tell me, but nevertheless, the one guy I wanted to talk about here, not so much Kelly, but Tyson Helton as the offensive coordinator. This spoke to me of, and I've spoken of Tennessee being insular, and yeah, I mean, I went at it. You can watch it on Facebook. Selena Summers is, how dare you call Tennessee insular? Well, you just said, Selena, that every coach before Lane Kiffin had a Tennessee tie, and I looked at it. Yeah, Bob Neal, and it surprised me because I had not realized, I'll be honest with you, I had not realized that Bill Battle had been an assistant. I knew he'd come from Alabama, but then he was an assistant at Tennessee. Makes sense, just didn't register. I mean, I wasn't alive in the 60s, so forgive me. I do my research historically. Even Bob Nealon was an assistant for 1 year, 1925, coming from Army, before he got the job in 1926. So yeah, they're former players. I went through there. Some, if they hadn't been an assistant, they'd been a former player, you know. But everybody from, I guess, Nealon to, I could look up before then. I mean, you know, there was all this. To Fulmer had some sort of Tennessee tie. Lane Kiffin didn't. Neither did Dooley. And neither did Butch. So, and neither is Jeremy Pruitt, to my knowledge. Anyway, point here being that, or was Pruitt on the staff before? Pruitt was on the staff, or excuse me. So I'm forgetting Pruitt, so I'm thinking, oh, he came from Alabama and all that, but I guess he had, a cup of coffee, didn't he? Let me double-check Pruitt's record, forgive me. All I remember is he was in high school in 2006, and the Alabama defense is pretty good, so. It was at Florida State, so, yeah. Anyway, Tyson Helton is all set to be the new offensive coordinator of the Tennessee Volunteers. He is the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, or offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Tennessee. He's the younger brother of Clay Helton, who is currently the passing game coordinator of the USC Trojans, or as we like to say in SEC country, because South Carolina is the real USC, Southern California, but don't call him Southern Cal. I once had a high school coach from New Jersey that had a few players signed with the Trojans, and I called him Southern Cal, which the John City Press still does from time to time, and he went off on me. And I'm like, really? You're going to go off on me because of that? Yeah. USC might be Upper St. Clair, for crying out loud. I mean, Anyway, to me, this is sort of a insular Tennessee hire because of the relationship there. Couldn't get T. Martin, and I don't blame him. I mean, it would be a step down for T. Martin, really, to go to Tennessee as the offensive coordinator from Southern California, no matter where he's from, if he played college football. If he was going to go back to Tennessee, yeah, he should stick to his guns and has to be the head coach. There's no question about that. That's the next progression. Going from the Pac-12 champ to a 4-8 last place SEC team, alma mater or no, is a step down in your career. Okay? I mean, let's just face facts. So you go look through the rest of the staff. You say your former, you had Martin play. Well, who else you got? And that's actually a nice thing because it kind of shows there's not ill will between Martin and Tennessee. And you get Tyson Helton. Helton ran Jeff Brom's offense at Western Kentucky, there's that man again, up at Purdue before he went and got the job at Southern California last year. So this is kind of interesting. By the way, it looks like also Will Friend will be the Vols' offensive line coach. He's the Colorado State offensive coordinator. That's a guy who played offensive line at Georgia. He was the offensive line coach at Georgia for 4 seasons before going to coach at Colorado State. And Mike Bobo. I guess he was a former Mark Richt guy and wasn't retained. And Bobo, of course, former Georgia quarterback. Kind of surprised Bobo hasn't gotten more attention as a major college football coach. That was a guy that I was surprised maybe didn't come up when 11 guys came up to be the Tennessee head coach in one way or another. I counted 11 people associated with the position. Anyway, so there you go. Tyson Helton. By the way, speaking of of that coaching search, ill-fated, Greg Schiano is talking, no he's not, about what happened. And boy, this is going to be very interesting to me. Because here's the thing. Everybody's saying that all you got against Schiano is hearsay. The word of Mike McQueary. The word of Mike McQueary has put some people in jail. It's proven to be pretty correct. It's also made him a whistleblower. He couldn't even get a job in state college at a Rite Aid. He had to sue the university, and now he's a millionaire. Okay, did the right thing, but he probably isn't going to coach again, which is sad because, why wouldn't you, if you're not Penn State, even if you are Penn State for crying out loud, why wouldn't you hire a coach who, what's the worst thing you can say about McQuarrie? He went to Penn State, it's a football coach, and not the police to report Sandusky. Okay, probably should have gone to the police. But I can see it's like, what in the world is going on? Jerry, what are you doing? I can see a little bit of the shock. Okay, yeah, maybe McQuarrie should have acted in a different way. Everybody should have reacted in a different way up there. And if there's anybody who comes out a hero in this, the guy who did the most is obviously McQuarrie. All right. And if you don't know, and I don't know how you wouldn't know, but yeah, he said that he believed Greg Schiano, just like Joe Paterno, knew back in the day. That he once saw a white-faced Schiano coming out of a locker room, or what in the world is going on? Schiano's denied these charges, but the thing is, this is really, I think, the smoking gun that prevented Schiano from being the head football coach at Tennessee. I mean, say what you will, but defensive coordinator from Ohio State, defensive coordinator from Alabama. You know, Schiano's been linked to other jobs before. Former pro coach, wasn't all that successful there. The man who put Rutgers into the Big Ten. Maybe he can put Tennessee on top of the SEC East, except it's from that whole Penn State thing. The thing is, I don't think Schiano, after the way this went down with Tennessee, is ever going to be a head coach again. And if that's the case, and if Mike McQuarrie's getting $7 million in his own lawsuit, and if Schiano really never saw anything, I don't know, why doesn't he sue McQuarrie for defamation is my question, instead of just denying. That's going to prevent his career from advancing. Schiano was asked about the Tennessee situation. Why didn't he get the job, etc. And since he's the defensive coordinator at Ohio State, he's playing coy. His quotes are, "We're concentrating on the Cotton Bowl. I'm going to speak about the whole thing at some point when it's appropriate. Right now, I don't think it is. Right now, it's all about this season and the Cotton Bowl and us closing out this season the right way." Now, does Tennessee owe Schiano some money? Most reports that I see say no. The idea is that a verbal contract in Tennessee for more than $10,000, and certainly this was a multi-million contract, you need some signatures on a document. And that was something that, Jeremy Pruitt, listen to me, Curry never got from Schiano. Would have been an interesting thing if Pruitt had gotten it from him. But no, that John Curry had never received from Schiano. We've seen the document. There are spaces that need to be signed that haven't been. And so Tennessee is trying to say that this means that we don't owe you any money. It's got to be settled, I'm sure, in some courtroom. I can see where Schiano, why it is in his best interest to stay mum. But there are some questions now, and that's going to break down. Question is, at what point and how does that affect, the Tennessee recruiting? Oh my goodness, recruiting. We can't have it affect, it'd be horrible if it affected recruiting. A player from the Matadors of Arizona Western might not want to come to Knoxville if we don't, my goodness, what will happen? Tri-City Sports Now here. By the way, other coaching news here that I wanted to mention. This is kind of fun. Greg Schiano does not like Donald Trump. We know that, right? All right, not Greg Schiano, listen to me. Maybe he doesn't either. But Greg Popovich, I'll get the names right, folks, I'm sorry. Greg Popovich, San Antonio Spurs coach. You've heard him go off. He was in the news the other day talking about how players and coaches in the NBA are rich, so they should give a lot of money to charity. Nice sentiment. That's one of the things that I, applaud him for saying. But I really don't like the way that he's gone after the president. Okay, I really don't. I think a lot of the statements that he made have been stretches. But, okay, in the NBA, the culture of the NBA, it's not going to be pro-Trump. It was pro-Obama. Michelle used to make promos for the darned association. Which is fine. Hey. But it also shows, and it's one of the things where I think that sports are becoming less everyman. I think the NFL might be the last everyman sport. And at one time it seemed like they all were. Both Heartland and... but now there's actual... polarizations among sports. There's actual cultures among sports. Tennis, hockey, golf, very suburban. Basketball, very urban. the, country, the Hoosiers type basketball scene. Maybe that plays in Indiana, not so much anywhere else. Kentucky, maybe. Baseball used to be every man, certainly. Now is becoming a sport of pointy heads, trying to turn it into an algebra problem. This is destroying it. Football, I think, was, American, every man, and it's still just to a certain extent. I think that's also one of the reasons why it's being so attacked these days. Anyway, Popovich doesn't like Trump. Neither do most people in the NBA. All right. But one guy kind of likes him in the NFL, or at least is willing to reference him. And it's old school Bruce Arians, the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I talked about, and you can see it on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities, or you can hear it. I mentioned, you can read about it on Medium. Marky's monologue is about Marvin Lewis. And I wanted to talk about Marvin Lewis, who may be coaching his last game as a NFL head coach when the Bengals play the Ravens this week, because Marvin Lewis actually, he was a defensive coordinator when Mike Smith was a linebackers coach at Baltimore. Gave ETSU's Mike Smith, he was the first boss that he really had in the pros, coming from Tennessee Tech. Who else? You got Marvin Lewis, was the defensive coordinator for Steve Spurrier, 2002. The Washington Redskins, local tie there. Just how about this? Arizona Cardinals coach uses Trump playbook on fake news. That's right. Bruce Arians is on the hot seat, just like Marvin Lewis is. There's many 10 coaches that could be fired on Monday or next week in the NFL. And there were a lot of rumors and reports, and actual reports, Bruce Arians will be out as Arizona's coach, which I would find unfortunate. I always kind of liked his coaching staff and all that. He's got a guy who started under Andy Gustafson at Miami in 1957. It's hard not to root for somebody like that. Anyway, this is what Arians said at his press conference. Like Trump, he's attacking fake news. If you want to ask me about this fake news story that has come up, I'm quoting the president now. It's to me, it's just great. I look at this, and yeah, it's time to end the stigma and the taboo there. As I go through this and look through some of the other ideas there, I would tell you that Arians doesn't know anything about the reporter or the alleged meeting discussing a departure from the team, and he says he's getting a little tired of it. Yeah, when asked about the questions stemming from the report. No, I will tell you, how much bad information have we gotten on various, defensive coordinator hires, various news certainly coming out of Tennessee over the coaching searches. So, Bruce Arians, it seems as if the Cardinals have underachieved here for a while, but he is a likable coach, and he has had the Cardinals as successful, really, as they've ever been since 1947 when they were in Chicago. I realize they haven't made the Super Bowl under him, and the Cardinals did make the Super Bowl in 2008. However, I think it was Ken Wisenhunt was the coach then. However, Cardinals were 9-7 that year. And they become a double-digit franchise in terms of victories more recently. It will be unfortunate, I guess, if the Larry Fitzgeralds or the Carson Palmers don't retire with Super Bowl rings, don't retire with Super Bowl rings. I guess that'll be a little unfortunate, but you know what? I don't know. Is anybody going to really criticize the job that Bruce Arians has done overall in Arizona? But I guess that's the thing. It's not so much what you've done overall, it's what you've done lately. I still like Bruce Arians. And I like I talk about fake news from time to time. That's why I get on the homers in the local media, to tell you the truth. Tri-City Sports Now. When we come back, I'll give you a couple of NFL scenarios in terms of the playoffs, but I will also tell you about a move the Atlanta Braves made. Of course, we are your home of the Atlanta Braves in the Tri-Cities, 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities. Back to tell you about it after this.
Firestone Destination Tires take you anywhere.